This video will hopefully help you answer box plot questions. Now, these questions come up usually around the same sort of area as cumulative frequency, and sometimes cumulative frequency and box plot questions come up together. So I suggest that if you're revising box plots, make sure that you're also revising cumulative frequency. Firstly, I've got a box plot drawn down the bottom here. So hopefully you'll notice that there are 5 vertical lines where the 3 in the middle are joined up by a box, and the 2 outside ones are joined up with these lines, which we call whiskers. So sometimes box plots are known as box and whisker diagrams. Okay, so let's have a look at some questions. So this first question is giving you a list of data, and you're asked to draw a box plot from it. So the data is about 80 American students, and they are asked how long they spend studying maths each week. Now, the second line in this list says that the shortest time spent studying was 2 minutes. Now, if you remember, the shortest or the smallest value is our first line on our box plot. So we're going to draw that in here. Now, notice that my scale is going up in 2s, so 2 minutes sits on my first line. The next line says that the range was 96 minutes. Now, if you look back, you'll see that the range wasn't actually one of our lines. Instead, the range is going to be used to calculate our maximum time. Now, if you remember, the range is the maximum, take away the minimum. So we're given the minimum and we're given the range. So what we need to do is we need to add these two values together and we'll get our maximum value. So that's going to be 2 plus 96, and that gives me 98. Now, just remember that sometimes they could give you the maximum instead and the range, and in this case we would have to take the range away from the maximum to get the minimum. Okay, but firstly let's put 98 on our box plot. Just remember that these lines, it doesn't actually matter how tall they are. Okay, it just matters where they're positioned, so this one has to be at 98 to get the marks. Okay, so the next line says that the median time was 32 minutes. So put that on, because again, it's one of our lines on our box plot. There we go, 32. The next one, upper quartile, again, that's one of our lines on our box plot, so I'm going to put that in there. Just bear in mind that although it doesn't matter how tall these are, we're actually going to be joining up the median, upper quartile, and lower quartile up with a box. So it's probably good to make sure that these are actually the same length, the same height. Okay, this last section down the bottom here says the interquartile range was 38 minutes. Now, if you remember, we've got 4 lines here, but the 5th line isn't the interquartile range, it's the lower quartile. And the lower quartile is our second line, so it should be sitting around here. Okay, just like in the range, the interquartile range is going to be used to calculate this. So we're given the upper quartile, we're given the interquartile range. To find the lower value, we're going to take the upper quartile and take away the interquartile range from it. So again, we've got a little calculation to do. 60 take away 38. Okay, and that equals 22. So finally, I've calculated my lower quartile. I'm going to put that on. There we go. Just make sure it's the same height as your median and your other upper quartile. And now we've got our 5 lines. We're just going to connect them up, the 3 in the middle with a box, and the ones at the end with the whiskers. And there we have it. Our box and whisker plot is drawn. Sometimes they ask you to draw a box plot from a cumulative frequency diagram. Now, I'm not going to go into how to find these lower quartiles, medians, and upper quartiles from a cumulative frequency diagram, because I've already covered that in the cumulative frequency video. So if you're not sure how I've got these lines and these values down the bottom here, then just click on the cumulative frequency video and go to the last section and it will explain it all there. Now that we've calculated these, okay, we're given a little bit of extra information in the question. Okay, so we're told that the shortest time taken was 6 minutes and the longest time taken was 92 minutes. So we're just going to plot all of these values on our box plot and join it on like we've done before. So 6 minutes for the shortest time, that's our first line. 92 minutes, okay, is our longest line, so that's our the longest time, so that's our 5th line. 28 is our lower quartile. 39 our median. 58 is our upper quartile. And again, I'm just going to join these up with a box in the middle, and whisk is connected to the minimum and maximum. Okay, so the last thing they could ask you is for you to compare the distribution of two box plots. Sometimes they ask you to compare the distribution of a box plot and a cumulative frequency, but they're always asking for the same sort of thing. Now, it is 2 marks, and they're always looking for 2 different comparisons to be made. Firstly, they want you to compare the median. Now, looking at these 2 box plots, you can see that the median is the line sitting within the box, okay, and clearly the British median is higher than the Americans. So that means that the average for the British is higher than the average for the Americans. So we can conclude that the British students spend on average more time studying than the Americans. Now we can actually calculate this, we can put a number to it. We can say how much bigger it is. So the British have 39 as their median and the Americans have 22. So we can say that there is a difference of 7 there. So that's what we're going to write in here. So by comparing the median, the British students spend on average more time studying by 7 minutes. Now, saying that it's 7 minutes is not necessary, but it is really important that you're mentioning that you're comparing the median to do this. The second thing they're going to ask you is to compare a measure of spread, or how spread out the data is. Now, there are 2 different values you can use. You can either compare the range or the interquartile range. Now, because the interquartile range is seen as more accurate, they usually prefer you to compare those. So the interquartile range is depicted by how wide the box is. So we can calculate that again. Okay, so we've got 60 take away 22, so the Americans have a interquartile range of 38. The British is 58 and 28, so they have an interquartile range of 30. So you can see by the diagram that the American box is bigger, so the American interquartile range is bigger, therefore they have more spread out data. So that's what we're going to write here. And again, if you want to, you can put a number to it, okay? But we're just going to say here that by comparing the interquartile range, the American students have a greater spread of data by 8 minutes. Again, this quantity here is not necessary, but the important thing is you're stating that you're comparing the interquartile range and you're making the right comparison. Okay, so hopefully that's helped you. I would recommend that you have a little go at some of the exam questions. Okay, good luck.